Because of course, that's one of the good things. One of the good things about Zoom is you can do these kind of events with major authors, so you don't have to worry about trying to get them to your city and have to deal with hotel accommodations and all such things as that.
Yeah, we're really pleased to have Mary Dowdell here today, our author for today's event. We will be recording this and re-airing this on Facebook at a later date for Women's History Month, actually. I mean, Mary, your story is incredible. We really appreciate your book and look forward to the conversation with Ron.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your having me.
Well, Mary, you know, I'm a big believer in the library supporting our local authors, and your book was just perfect for the 2021 African American Black History Month theme.
Thank you.
And Ron, I have hit record, so we are
Okay.
recording.
Okay. Mary, I noticed you said you wanted your daughter to see this later. I will let you know when it's because it has to go to our webmaster, and he will. I'll find out from him when it's ready to post.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
She's having to work today.
When I first started working, my job required me to work every Saturday, and I didn't really mind it until I got a different position that didn't require me to work Saturdays. And then when I got to another position that required me to work every other Saturday, for some reason, I just thought, I just can't stand this Saturday working.
Yeah, it's something you have to get used to.
Well, my favorite time to work is at night. Because since I've been
Really?
working.
Oh, that's the time. That's the only time that I do have issues with. But being a social worker and being on call, I had to be available 24/7. So doing child protection, you have to go when they call.
Beth, did you just let somebody in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or it did disappear from my screen. That's the reason I was asking. Yes, man, like I said earlier, this week, I kept, every time I opened up my emails, there was somebody wanting to register. So I said, wow, this is great.
Okay.
Because I actually, before these kind of events, I always, a couple of days before, send out another reminder to my contact list. So, because, you know, sometimes some people may take them a little while before they decide they are going to register.
I understand.
Oh, hi, Sister Mary.
Hello.
You look beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, I know it's 1 o'clock, but I think I'm gonna just wait a couple of minutes to give, I mean, sometimes it may take some people a little bit of time to access.
Why don't I make the announcement again? I put in the chat, we have a special program coming up for our Book Lovers Social at the Greensboro Public Library on Thursday, March 18th, and program will be at 7 o'clock in the evening. It's going to be an evening with Tiare Jones, the New York Times bestselling author of American Marriage and Silver Sparrow. You know, she was on Obama's book club list, as well as many others. So please follow that Zoom link and register for the webinar, and feel free to share it. It'll be a very special evening. She'll be interviewed by our own Ronald Hedden here, who does an extraordinary job with the author programming, and then also be introduced by author Quinn Dalton, who is a friend of Tiare's. Several of you may remember that Tiare Jones actually visited our area for the Untelling, for 2 of her books, The Untelling and for Silver Sparrow. She's been in our community. We have supported her through the years, and now that she's you know, a superstar in the literary world, it's very nice to welcome her back to Greensboro. So we want to give her that good Greensboro welcome. So like I said, she will be here virtually on Thursday, March 18th at 7 o'clock, and the link is in the chat. So let's see, someone says that the information is not showing up on their screen. Let's see. If you click on chat, it should maybe show up as a sidebar.
Right, yeah, if you click on chat, it will.
Yeah, if you click on chat, maybe you can see it. I'll repost it, see if it comes up again too.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay. You can also go to our website, to greensborolibrary.org.
Okay, well, it's 1:03, so we've got 16 folks here, which is wonderful. And if anyone else goes to the waiting room, I will, of course, let them in.
One little housekeeping thing, we will be recording today, so if you don't mind, put yourself on mute, and that would be great. And then we'll open it up for Q&A, and then you can unmute yourself. And I'm going to put myself on mute right now as well.
Okay.
Ronald Hedden, our adult programming librarian at Hemphill Branch, and our guru in so many ways, especially with all the book clubs that you have and facilitate, Ron. Why don't you just take it away? Okay,
thank you, Beth. That's very kind of you. I'd like to welcome all of you this nice Saturday afternoon for a conversation with Mary Dowdell about her book, Brick to Brick, Building a Black Family in America. The 2021 theme for African American Black History Month was Black Family, Representation, Identity, and Diversity. And when Mary had contacted me about her book, and I started reading it, and I realized that it was the perfect book, one of the most perfect books for that theme. And so she said she was very willing to do a program with us, which I was very happy about. And we have also placed the book into our collection. So if you don't already own one, you can also go to the library and obtain a copy. Now, what I would like to do is read I thought Mary had a great short biography on her website. So I'd like to share that with all the participants. Mary was born in Brick, North Carolina, which I have to admit was not familiar with until I saw the book. Mary is a career child and family social worker who has experience in both public welfare and private nonprofit child welfare administration. She has served in public social work for more than 20 years now. Mary has also spent 12 years in public child welfare administration, 5 years in private nonprofit executive administration, and 10 years in church leadership. Mary earned a PhD in business administration with emphasis on public administration. Her dissertation study focuses on North Carolina child and family nonprofit sustainability. Mary is dedicated to helping children and families regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds. That dedication is what drives her to always look for the most family-centered approach to life success. In support of her love for education and young people, Mary serves on the board of directors for the McLean Family Scholarship Fund. The fund provides scholarship support to students attending North Carolina A&T State University. And if you have questions about Mary's consulting and training services, you can call or send her an email. Her services are available in Guilford County and surrounding areas. Excuse me. Okay, can everybody see me okay? On my screen just went blank over here.
I can see you.
Okay. All right. Get back. So Mary Dowdell, thank
Yes,
you for joining. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I just want to say that I thought your book was wonderful, and we'll start off with having you read an excerpt from it, please.
Okay, all right. Now, the excerpt that I've chosen, I picked this particular part because as we have today, we're struggling still with race and racism. And this is something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about that we went through when we were growing up. And so this is the little portion that I picked at the beginning of the book. So I remember about traveling during this time. Even though I was a young child, I found it interesting. I never understood why my parents were doing what they did until I got a lot older. When we prepared to travel, my mother would have big lunches of very good food, things that would be good for travel and that would require no refrigeration or anything. She would cook fried chicken, make sandwiches, and she would take something to drink and all of the other things that we needed. They would sometimes take a container or something in case someone had to use the bathroom. They would have all that in the car. Later, I realized that it was because in the South, you could not stop at a lot of stores. You could not stop at restaurants. African American people were not welcome in a lot of places. So people who traveled a lot had to plan in advance where they could stop and where they could not stop. My parents knew where they could get gas and would often travel with the gas can in our trunk. People were not as spontaneous about just traveling as they are now. You might pick up a map that would give you the road directions to where you would travel. But as an African American, you had to know the roads that you were on and whether they were safe because of the prejudice and racism that existed during that time. You had to know how to talk to people. You had to know what you could do and what you could not do to survive and on the road traveling. So that's something that I just wanted to stick in there because you know, you don't hear people talk about it, but people just did not just get on the road. We would drive, and I would hear my parents say, "Oh boy, you don't want to stop there. This happened there, or that happened there, or whatever." And you did not want to get in a situation that would be challenging or that would lead to any type of racial conflict, especially when they had their children in the car. So I rarely hear of anybody. Most people just say they got in the car and they just drove wherever they wanted to drive. But when I was growing up, it wasn't that simple.
And you were so right, because I experienced the same kind of thing, because my father was from Wilmington, and we always went down there during the summer. And my mother did the same thing. She did this big picnic basket, and we would stop on the road and eat. And if you had to use the bathroom, you want to use it where you stopped.
Yeah.
And everything. And so that's one of my, because there were so many things in your book that brought back childhood memories, because since we sort of grew up around the same time, or a lot of these things happened around the same time. And that's one of the things I liked about the book. But it's a great story about your family. I was very impressed with the accomplishments of your family. I would like to have known your parents. And I kept thinking when I was reading the book about Hidden Figures, because one of the things that the popularity of Hidden Figures brought out was all of these folks who had done some major accomplishments, but we just didn't know about it.
Right.
And so I said, that your parents were basically hidden figures also.
That's why I decided to write the book. I felt like that African American people don't write enough about their family. It's not that we don't have people who do great things. It's just that most of us for years have just struggled to survive, and we haven't recorded it. And so there are some books that have information about my father in them, and I do put those books, I list those books here.
Yes.
And I did use that information, but there's not enough of that. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna make sure that what I know, I write down and record for the historical value.
Well, and the other thing is that this is something that will be available to future generations in your family, which will be very important, because I've always felt like, family history is very important. We like to know where we came from and how we got to where we are.
That's right.
And one thing that in one of my other author interviews, something that I realized is that everybody has a story to tell. As a matter of fact, the author who presented a program on that during the summer about telling your story, which was the summer reading theme for last year, because we, unfortunately, there are people out there who have no idea about their backgrounds or where they came from.
Yeah.
And I've always found having that family history preserved very important. In my own family, unfortunately, my aunt died in a plane crash, who was our family historian, and we've had to go back and start from scratch to try and get that information, because nobody was able to find it when she died.
Oh, wow. Wow. It
So
takes a lot of time to accumulate the history.
Oh my gosh. I decided I was going to be the person who was going to do that. And I went to my first genealogy class, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this right now. I won't have to wait till I retire maybe before, because I had no idea of what it's almost like having a second job, I think, if you're trying to trace your family history. But it's certainly worth having a record of it. Now, the town of Brick, I sort of found sort of fascinating. It sort of gave me that good feeling I get when I'm watching something about a quaint little southern town. Is that sort of the way you felt like Brick was?
Oh, yes, yes. The Brick property was owned by a very rich white person. And actually the last name was Brick, and husband had passed away. According to my readings, the husband had passed away. And at the time when they were building the rural life schools, now rural life schools were schools that were set up after slavery to train Black people for self-sufficiency, economic self-sufficiency. And so, because we know that Black people knew how to farm, right? We know that because they were always the ones doing the farming. They knew how to build because they were always the ones doing the building. But the economic side of it, knowing how to market it, knowing how to actually manage the finances of all of it, knowing all of the things involved in profiting and building wealth, or building just survival. Because at the time, wealth wasn't as much of an issue as being able to take care of yourself was. So initially it was a self-sufficiency idea. And so they built these schools across the country. And Brick was one of the places. The lady dedicated the property. I understand it was it was like maybe 500 acres. I'm not sure exact acres anymore. That skipped my memory right now, but it was a large plot of land that they donated and established the school there. And then they hired people to run it. Now, my father was not the first one who ran that school, but when he graduated from Hampton in 1935, after he and my mother married, he went to New York, where the American Missionary Association was housed. Their headquarters were there. And while he was there in New York, I went there to go to Cornell. And while he was there in New York, he went to the American Missionary Association, got hired to be the director of that school. And he and my mother married, went there together, started a family together, and they were there 19 years.
Right.
All their children, we were all born there.
It seemed like a very close-knit community, and despite that being the times of segregation, it seemed like that mostly everyone got along and was trying to help each other.
Right, it was a place where if you didn't work together, that working together was part of the survival, and the concept, the hope that it gave people that you can actually own your own home, that you can actually have a home that provides the comfort, that is a nice home. It doesn't just have to be a shanty. It can be a nice place. It may not be elaborate, but it can be nice and comfortable and suitable. And so those kinds of things, it required people to work together. If they hadn't worked together, they would not have been able to obtain it, because racism was still quite alive. And in order for African American people to do well, they did have to work together.
That's true. And I also, noticed how important education was to your parents, because, of course, with them working in education, your father working in education, and so it looked like it instilled that into you and your siblings, because all of you all went to college, graduated, and appeared to be very successful.
I had old school parents. I don't know whether you should try this today. That's one of those things, like they say on the disclaimers, don't do this at home. My parents didn't leave that decision really to us. We grew up knowing that the expectation was that we would go to college. We had the choice of going to college or going out on your own. They were not going to take care of us past high school. Those decisions really were sort of made for us. And so we all knew that we had to go to college, and there were a lot of discussions about what we would major in and what we would do with our lives.
Well, you did mention in the book that your parents were very strict, and you know, and that they were keeping tabs on all of you all, but there still was a great family vibe that I felt like that came from the story, because you know there are, unfortunately, at least today, so many families that are fractured, and you know, and all your family just seemed like a really good family that you want to be a member of.
My parents had a tremendous love story, I thought. You know, they met at Hampton, they dated for a while, and then they stayed together, and they not only stayed together and had 6 children, they worked together the whole time, pretty much. A very short period of time. My mom had a job working for one of the doctors in the area. That was about 2 or 3 years. Other than that, even during those 2 or 3 years, she was still working with my dad and doing whatever he was doing. They went to work and actually worked on the same job site together until they both retired. So yeah, they had a tremendous love story. Not that they didn't have the same kinds of hard discussions that everybody else has. You know, I remember them having some of those real challenging discussions, but there was never ever a thought of anybody hurting anybody emotionally or physically. They were able to talk about tough topics and come to a conclusion. We never tried to pay one against the other because we knew they were together on what they decided. That was a strength that we picked up from them, that we always knew that they were going to be there and that they were together on everything. But it didn't mean that we didn't have issues. I try to make sure I painted that picture in the book. That's why I wrote my testimony. It didn't mean that nobody had anything that went wrong. We all had things that went wrong. We still do. We faced different things. But what I got from them was that you don't allow those things to stop you. Continue. You fight through them, and you still come out victorious. My father's father left home when he was a young boy. He wasn't the oldest in his family. He was around, there were 7 children, and I think he was maybe number 4. But they looked to him to help with the finances. He worked to help his mother support his siblings, and he didn't stop. He went on to college, continuing to work for his siblings, most of whom also went to college. So he didn't have it easy. It wasn't that he didn't have problems. So from that, we learned, yeah, you're gonna make mistakes. I made a lot of them, but I knew from them that I shouldn't let that stop me, that I still could fight and I still could win.
Well, you know, like you said, your parents projected a united front with raising you all, and like you said, because I mean, you had quite some things to happen to you through your life. You know, especially starting with when you went to college, and those experiences you had on campus, which I hadn't thought about that kind of thing, because by the time I went to college, that wasn't really a big issue if we all lived in the same dorm or something. But you know, but of course at the time it wasn't surprising that there was going to be resistance to you all moving in, because was one thing, like you said in the book, that's real very important that we all need to remember. That whole concept of separate but equal was a big joke.
That's right.
Because you know, when it came to our schools, we were getting hand-me-down textbooks from the white schools, and facilities that were put aside for us were nowhere as equal quality as in the white community. So
I remember my father telling us when segregation came, which was just about the time that integration came. It was just about the time that I went off to college. And I remember him saying to us, and it was really impactful. He said to us that they requested from him his very best teachers and his very top students, only a few of them to go over to the white school.
Mhm.
And of course, when it came to who came over to our school, it was whoever was willing to go.
Oh,
And that was very few. So even in the whole of integration, there was never an intent to make it, equal. It was something that they had to do because it was being demanded at the time, and so people were going through with it. But in the South, people were going through with it with their war uniforms on, and so I do remember how hard it was for them to get that set up at the school that my father was principal of. It just wasn't easy, and it wasn't, if we want to look at fair, it wasn't fair. But it happened. And at that time I was going off to college, and like I say in the book, it didn't dawn on me, being from a small place. It didn't dawn on me how people would take me, how they would do, I had a scholarship, an all expense paid scholarship to go to a white school to help in the integration. So I went, and I just thought it was a way to save money. I didn't know. And when I got there, nobody wanted to even be on the same hall. Not in the room with us, but they didn't even want to be on the same hall. Don't want to share the same bathrooms. Don't want to do any of that. It was tough, but I stuck it out for a while, and it wasn't unusual for the Klan to come on campus.
I know that's what I thought that was amazing to hear the Klan coming on campus, and obviously nobody did anything about it.
They didn't. They sure didn't.
'Cause, I'll tell you, Mary, one moment that I was appalled at was when you told about the what the teacher told you in the speech class when when you were concerned about your grade, why you kept getting a C, and the teacher telling us that we could not talk on the same level as Caucasians. I was like, holy moly, this is
So
a
we had an
teacher.
inherent speech defect. So I didn't know, I've always had a little bit of a lisp. So I didn't know if that was what it was talking about. But I kind of had a little spunk in me. So I asked, well, if it's inherent, how can you grade it?
Yes, I thought that
And
was a
yet,
great
the
response.
grade didn't change. I didn't fail it, but I got pretty close to failing it. I worked hard, and I couldn't get a good grade.
That's really so unfortunate that you had that obstacle from a teacher, no less. I can't say surprising, but because I know that when integration started, that there were a lot of teachers who felt like that we could not keep up. But I like to think that we, in the long run, proved them wrong.
One of the things I missed too was the fact that in our schools before integration, the Black teachers in the South, in the small areas where I'm from in Eastern Carolina, they helped us by training us and helping our parents, as our parents did most of it. But in the school systems, it was part of the curriculum to teach us how to survive in the white world.
Right.
We sang the Black National Anthem every time we had assembly. And the teachers would say, if you're going to do this, if you're going to make it, you got to be able to do this, and you got to be able to do that. And it was built into the curriculum. And when we integrated, of course, all our teachers weren't Black anymore. So I'm pretty sure now I graduated during that period. I graduated in 65 from high school. And so during that period of time, from what I could see, since all our teachers were no longer Black, they just didn't know how to continue that part of it. So that disappeared from school. And I doubt that that is being upheld anywhere now outside of maybe the church.
That's true, because that argument has been raised recently. Well, not recently; it's been for some time about how we know that we needed to integrate, but yet at the same time we lost something in the Black community with integration.
Right.
And I don't know, there are things we're still working on, of course.
Yes.
Yes, and one thing I noticed that with everything that you have gone through, your faith helped you get through it. That was just extremely important to you, because you had quite some things to happen to you, in regards to the passing of both your parents, and it seemed like you almost lost most of your siblings in a short amount of time. Your marriage sort of went south, and then your husband going to prison and what happened with him. And so, life has not always been a bed of roses for you.
That's right. It hasn't. Well, at one point, before all that happened, I was really, really struggling and very depressed. I was truly clinically depressed, but being a social worker, I wasn't about to go and get analyzed. So I just dealt with it. But I remember my father told me, he said, if you don't like where you are now and you're not comfortable with what's going on with you now, look back at a time when you felt better and what was happening with you at that time, and see maybe if there's some things you might want to go back to. Well, he was referring to the church and God. When I left home to go to college, like many young people, I stopped totally going to church, and I was out of the church for years. I must say 10, 12 years. During that time, I made a lot of insane decisions, just out of the lack of good judgment and just, I guess, like many young people, just trying different things in life and not really thinking it through, not making well-informed decisions. And so I paid the cost for it. I had a lot of disruption and a lot of pain. I did return, not to the church. I don't want to say return. I got saved. I gave my life to the Lord. I began to read the Bible. I began on a personal level, not through somebody that witnessed to me, just getting the Bible, reading it, going through it over and over and over again, trying to get an understanding of marriage, get an understanding of family, get an understanding of life. And so I would just probe it. I couldn't be satisfied. I had to continuously read it. And so during that time, I began to become much stronger and much wiser, and was able to deal with so many things. It didn't stop the things from happening. It changed how I dealt with them. And it gave me a victory in dealing with things that I had not seen before. And so when I wrote the book, it initially was simply supposed to be a family history. But when I started getting into it, I decided that I would be leaving off too much important information to just drop it at a family history. So I went on to put my testimony. Because you're right, if you're writing something about somebody else, you don't know how much permission you have. But I felt like I could write my story and say whatever I want to say and be as open and honest as I need to be, and that shouldn't be a problem. And so that's what I did. I wanted people to know that no matter what happens to you, no matter how old you are, no matter how abused you are, no matter where you come from, small town bricks, who's ever heard of that? That you can still overcome. You can become whoever you want to become. And your time just never runs out for that. As long as there's breath in you, you can reach your goals. And so I wanted to put that in there and give glory to God and to all the people who are my brothers and sisters in Christ that have been available and have helped me, many of whom I see up here today that have really helped me and stood with me as I had to grow through a lot of things. And for anybody that doesn't know God and is struggling, I want them to be able to read my book and find hope.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things I was going to say, is that from the book, in addition to it being a family history, there was a message of hope and survival in it. You know, because you know, you went through some bad times, and you had some good times too. And of course, that's basically what life is all about. But you know, because I especially as we got toward the end of the book, when just all these bad things just seemed were happening all at one time, and you know, and that can be trying on a person, you know, mental and physical health. That can, you know, really do you in. And so, but you know, but you have survived, and it's really good to have these stories shared, because you know, there'll be sometimes when people think they're the only ones going through something. And if they can look at someone else and see that they basically have been going through something similar, they can get some hope out of it, and not feel so defeated. Because I mean, I know there were things in your life that you probably felt defeated with, but you rose above them.
That's the benefit of the family of God. I did have some struggles at the end. I know you spoke of when I lost my 3 siblings and 1 sister-in-law in the same 14-month period of time. And that was a struggle. But I had a family of God, people who are brothers and sisters who prayed with me, who cried with me, who attended funerals with me, and just kept me going. And I could look at them and knowing and seeing their testimonies, because in the family of God, we share testimonies. So we know each other's testimony. And when they come to us and say, you know, I'm here with you, we know that they are coming from a point of experience, that they're not just trying to do something they read in a book, but they've been there and done that, and they know how to support you. And so that story is worth putting down so people can see that you know, there's hope, there's joy, there's still life. You know, there's no point at which we give up life. And the people who are living and smiling and enjoying life, they're not the people who don't have any problems. Everybody has a lot of problems. Everybody could give up. It's not that we don't give up because we don't have anything happening. It's because we know that our God is able to keep us. And we have people around us that constantly remind us of that. So I wanted that recorded. And so I thank you for the opportunity today to share it again.
Oh, you're very welcome. I just thought it was a wonderful book. I love the way it was structured. I liked at the end where you showed the speeches from your mother. There were great pictures in the book. And one of the things that I found most touching was Leslie's tribute to her father, Charles. Because since your brother, Charles, and his wife, Peggy, I worked with Peggy at one of the library branches some years ago. And you know, so I got to meet the whole family, and always felt like that they were such a wonderful family. And Leslie's tribute to her father just sort of made my eyes water, because it was so heartfelt, and just made me wish that I had even known him even better. Well, I knew when I met him that he was a great guy, but her tribute just displayed how even greater he was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ron and Mary, before we open up for question and answer, is there anything else you want to say in conclusion? And then I'll stop the recording and we can open up to question and answer.
Okay, well, I'll just wanted to say that, again, I thank Mary for this opportunity to talk with her about her book. And we will have questions from our participants.
And I put, Mary, I put your website in the chat for everyone too. So yeah, so yeah.
Well, and I'll say, well, Mary, I forgot one thing I meant to mention, that if anybody wants us to purchase a copy of her book, I know it's available on Amazon. And is there any other resources, Mary, where they can get or can they get the book directly from you?
It's published by Xlibris, Xilibris. It's published by Xlibris Publishers. I have posted it on Facebook. I have it on my website as well. I just saw in the chat that she put my web address there. So the link that takes you right to the publisher is on my website.
Okay.
Thank
you. Yeah, so I really want to, urge, if some of you have not read the book yet, and definitely read it. I think that one of the other things you will find, in addition to enjoying Mary's family history story, is that you will find some inspiration in it.
Thank
you. You're welcome. We do appreciate you joining us today. So, okay, so we will open this up for questions from everybody. So if you have a question,